time to pull up a chair and talk some Dynasty football. I'm your host, JJ Wenner, and this is the RoD Dynasty podcast. Tonight on the pod, we will discuss our April Dynasty rankings for running backs. And to do that, I am joined by Big Daddy, Don Detweiler. Don, with the Steelers signing Kalen Ballage, do you see the position as filled with no need to address during the draft?
Yeah, absolutely not. That's a nice signing for them. It's a good piece, but there's no way in the world that they are satisfied, or nor should they be. Ballage will be a good change of pace, maybe a short yardage back. It does kind of get a little interesting as to who they might target in their rookie pool, whether we're leaning more towards a Najee Harris or a Travis Etienne. They're different style runners and would complement Ballage a little bit more, but because Ballage is only on a very inexpensive one-year contract, you're not going to scope your team to him or anything like that. So I really don't see that changing the Steelers' scope.
From the Rule of Three podcast, Jared Clifton. Jared, with the Cowboys signing Dak to his contract, they seem to be out of the free agent market following that. Is this the right time for Dallas to be frugal?
Define frugal, I guess. No, it's not the right time, but Jerry and Stephen Jones, who knows what they're thinking? You know, we've got significant holes in the defense. Offensively, no problems, but it's not the right time. You've got this set 2 or 3 year window for the Cowboys. I would have liked to see them go a little bit more all in with some of the guys and not the retreads from Dan Quinn's previous defensive conquests, but it is what it is. You got to live with the Jones, love them or hate them.
Yeah, I guess you don't really have a choice when it comes to the owner of the team.
No.
Now, from deep within the RiderDynasty.com bunker emerges our friend Rob Mongol. Rob, as a fan of the NFC North, are you more worried about an Andy Dalton-led Chicago squad or the Trubisky Bears?
Definitely more worried about the Trubisky-led Bears. Trubisky he's a difficult one. He makes some horrible throws. You're confident in getting an interception. But he knows how to keep drives alive on his legs, and he's just pesky. With Dalton coming in, you certainly have a more accurate passer. I think there'll be less turnovers for the NFC North defenses to feast on. But fantasy perspective, Trubisky's definitely superior to Dalton. Accuracy-wise, Dalton's far superior. I do worry about his ability to support fantasy weapons in Chicago, though. Not that they have a whole lot outside of Allen Robinson and David Montgomery.
Especially with Anthony Miller supposedly now on the trading block in Chi-Town. Now, before we get into tonight's topic, do me a favor, hit subscribe and leave us a review if you can. Follow us on Twitter at RiderDynasty and check out our website, RiderDynasty.com, for all of our latest articles. In fact, tonight we just released the Devi Dirtbag's most recent mock draft. So give it a read and let him know what you think. Now, gentlemen, let's jump right into the main topic. Now, let's look at the first group of running backs. So number 1, we have Christian McCaffrey, followed by Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor at 3, Alvin Kamara at 4, and Dalvin Cook at 5. Except for 2 rankers, these 5 running backs were in everybody's top 5, just in a different order. Rob, is this order correct?
I personally would move Jonathan Taylor one spot above in front of Saquon. I just have a little bit of injury concern coming back from the ACL. Saquon's certainly proven that he's an elite runner. Jonathan Taylor is a little ways to go before he's in that same tiers of runner for me. But I will take Jonathan Taylor being 2 years younger and not coming off a severe knee injury.
Now, do you have any concern, Rob, over the fact that Indianapolis is a running back by committee room with Marlon Mack being re-signed? Are we going to see a reduction maybe in Jonathan Taylor's touches?
That was certainly the concern early on in Jonathan Taylor's career. With Marlon Mack going down, he definitely sees the backfield, even if it took him 5 or 6 weeks to really get going and do so. But I'm not very concerned. I think they ease Marlon Mack back in. He's a change of pace back to. I think Nyheim Hines will have more touches than him, certainly. And Marlon Mack he's coming off a pretty bad injury. He's there this year to get healthy more than anything.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Jared. What do you think about these 5 running backs? Are they in the right order?
No, I don't think they're quite in the right order. Again, I think we're going to see somewhere between end of the year Jonathan Taylor and beginning of the year Jonathan Taylor, especially early on with a new quarterback. We're going to see a little bit of a new offense. You had dead arm Phillip Rivers. Now you have Carson Wentz, who's got something to prove, reunited with Frank Reich. I do think they're going to turn it loose a little bit, which can be somewhat of a benefit to Jonathan Taylor. But like you said, with Nyheim Hines and Marlon Mack in there, we're not looking at Kamara-level reception numbers for Taylor. So I'm a little skeptical that he is better than, say, Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook has proven he's still very young. He still would probably be my number 3, if not number 2, just because of Saquon Barkley's injury concerns. So I probably shift Taylor down at least to 4, if not to 5, and let Kamara and Dalvin Cook radiate up.
Don, we keep talking about Saquon Barkley's injury history. Why aren't we talking about Christian McCaffrey in the same way?
So CMC hasn't had the extent that Saquon has. Saquon is now 2 years in, and this will be entering his 3rd year in the league, where he's had significant problems. Hopefully that coming in this year with the work that the Giants did on the offensive line last year will really help him. But I think we're more interested in the dynamicism that McCaffrey's going to bring to that offense with all of the retooling that Carolina's been able to do. And I think that, hopefully anyway, that the injuries that he had were more soft tissue based and less like ligament based. So I'm thinking that CMC is going to be in a better situation to prolong and return to his previous production, whereas Barkley has got to get his legs physically working again, rebuild strength. He's already shown to be a beast, so I'm not really worried about this. We're talking about the difference between 2 and 3 or 1 and 2 here. So both of them have great long-term prospects.
Now, just a question to the group. I have all 5 of these in the same tier. Should there be 2 tiers within these 5?
No.
No, I don't think so either. They all have their questions.
I think historically over the last, say half a decade, we have not seen repeat number 1 running backs. And so I think any one of these 5 could easily grab that mantle as the number 1 running back. Now, some of that's predicated on injuries with CMC and Barkley and some of that. But I think if you can grab any of these 5, it's really, I think it comes down to preference when we're talking about draft time. Because any of these guys, and maybe a couple of guys that finish out the top 10, could easily become the number 1 RB overall. So, yeah, I think this tier is the potential elites and really can go in any particular order.
Well, the next tier is Zeke, Chubb, and Henry. All known, all proven, all underranked. Quick quiz on this group. Who averages the most touches per game?
Henry.
I want to say Derrick Henry, but I feel like you're setting us up here.
I'm not smart enough to set anybody up.
of all running backs, or just
those 3?
5? Those 3, okay.
Zeke, Chubb, or Henry?
I'd say it has to be on a per game basis, Zeke.
It is Zeke with 19.9. Followed by 15.5 for Chubb and 15.2 for Derrick Henry. Henry had all those years where he wasn't really used. Next question. Who has the most yards per game?
Let's stick with Zeke.
Yeah, I'm going Zeke too.
Zeke. It's Zeke with 89.9. Right under a shade under 90 yards per game average. So I guess, why are we down on Zeke, Jared? you seem to be okay with him. I'm okay with him. I was one of the 2 who didn't have those 5 in the top 5. I had Zeke as my number 5.
I think we are unfairly, as a community, comping him with a guy like, say, Todd Gurley. We see these massive paydays come, and we've been very disappointed with some of the drop-off. And again, Todd Gurley's the guy that continues to come to mind. A lot of usage, a lot of points scored. You see a good player like Tony Pollard behind him. But I think that's a benefit to him. We get better, more quality touches. And regardless of what Dallas does this year, it's probably going to be 8-8, 7-9. Their offense is going to be fantastic. And so he's going to get a tremendous amount of scoring opportunities. And I think we just kind of forget, because with Dak out, there were some disappointing games. But you got Andy Dalton and Ben DiNucci. And I can't even remember the last guy that played quarterback. And I was
Garrett Gilbert?
Yeah, Garrett Gilbert. And I'm a Cowboys fan. So out of sight, out of mind for Zeke last year.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Don, when you look at the list, Zeke at 6, Chubb at 7, Henry at 8. Is that where they should be?
I think so, because we always worry about Henry and, to a lesser extent, Zeke, whether it's going to be, this is the year. This is the year that the wheels fall off because of the tremendous usage that these guys have taken over a prolonged period. Chubb is in a defined timeshare, but he's got the lion's share of that timeshare, so that's good. And he's the youngest of the 3, so to me, he's a little safer in that regard, and Cleveland absolutely wants nothing more than to run the ball, and run the ball a little more, and then, once again, run the ball. So, the rest of those teams, Dallas has developed this dynamic passing offense, and there's worry about a little regression on that offensive line. I mean, I hope those guys can all come back healthy, but they definitely took a hit last year, and I don't know that everybody's going to be back at full strength. So there's concern there. But as we look at it, I'm pretty comfortable with it. It's just that I think that Zeke and Henry kind of get that ding because we're worried about when do the wheels finally fall off.
Now, I do understand the point that you make about carries, but when we talk about age, I mean, Zeke and Chubb are the same age. They're both 25. I mean, I think Zeke might be a few months older than Nick Chubb, which is crazy when you think about it, right? Because he seems like...
It's unbelievable.
But I just find it odd that we always assume Zeke is older than he is because he's been so good for so long. But, I mean, he's a year and a half younger than Derrick Henry, which is pretty significant considering they came out in the same draft class.
I think Derrick Henry gets some historical favoritism just because he has such monster games when he does go off, and Zeke obviously from your stats has been more consistent overall. But anytime that you can get a running back that can collect a couple 200-yard games, there's a wow factor there. And we keep betting on Derrick Henry to fall off because he's a big bruising back. He's punishing, takes a lot of damage, gives a lot of damage, and he hasn't done it yet. There's going to be a fall-off point. I'm a bit concerned with Arthur Smith going to Atlanta and Todd Downing taking over as offensive coordinator, tight ends coach. We don't really know what his history is. It would be smart for the Titans to stop relying on Derrick Henry so much, but I'm going to have a hard time betting against him until he does show that fall off.
Yeah, and I'm afraid of what happens to Tannehill and the rest of that offense once they stop relying on Henry, though.
Absolutely.
He really has been the straw that stirs the drink, as they say. Not as I say it the opposite way, and it sounds stupid. So I apologize for that. But
you're not wrong, though. They're completely constructed to be around that dynamic running back.
And
right, you can't straw a drink with a. You were talking about the running back, not the way I constructed my phrase.
Yeah, that.
My bad.
The confident thing with Derrick Henry is they don't have a choice but to rely on him. They have A.J. Brown and who else? Anthony Ferkster's now the...
Darrington Evans? Hello? Jeremy McNichols? Is this thing on?
I actually don't hate Darrington Evans. He was injured most of last season. If we want to talk deep sleepers, I don't know if we have 4 hours to go through running backs today. but I refuse to drop him in one of my dynasty leagues.
We're only hitting the top 120 running backs today, so we're just going to miss Darrington.
I've got him at running back 119.
We'll get him in the next
We've got time
pod.
for him.
Oh, there's a disparity debate between you and I when we get there. All right, gentlemen, let's stop beating on these running backs too long. Let's hit our third tier. Now, our next group is a little bit bigger. At 9, we have Aaron Jones, followed by DeAndre Swift, Antonio Gibson, and Cam Akers. At 13 is Josh Jacobs, and 14, Austin Eckler. Now, this tier has a bit of everything. It has young and old, first-round stars, undrafted free agents. Don, do you remember the Twilight Zone episode, Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up?
I do.
It's where the bus
That's
pulls
going
into
way
the
back,
diner.
but yeah.
Yeah. Who is the Martian in this group? Who doesn't fit in? I'll give you them again. Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, Antonio Gibson, Cam Akers, Josh Jacobs, and Austin Eckler.
Man, of this whole pack, there's 2 that don't fit in because we don't know anything about them yet. It's Swift and Akers. I mean, we'd love to think that they're going to be good. They've blown up in spots. But what is going on in Detroit? They don't have a wide receiver of note. They have a quarterback that's like, he's K. And then Akers, we're going off of 2 really good games here at the end of the season to close things out. So the other guys at least have done it. And we know kind of what you're going to get out of them. But man, I have no idea what I'm going to get out of Swift and Akers. I think it's going to be good. They definitely have the draft pedigree to be good. And they're in situations where they're going to get carries or touches is probably more accurate for both of them. But boy, I just don't know what they are yet.
2-part follow-up for you, Don.
Ooh, fun.
1, who did you have ranked higher coming in? Swift or Akers? And 2, who do you have higher now?
I had Swift higher coming in. I liked Swift from a more pronounced program, could do some better stuff, and I had him coming in 3rd out of the rookie backs last year. Akers was my last of that cluster last year. Now, they're because of the team situations they're in, I have them reversed.
I'm ready to fight Dom over here. He's besmirched Florida State University's name. I'm a proud alumni up there, and man, I thought.
So, what's your preference, wide left or wide right?
Oh!
Can you just edit me out of this episode, JJ? I'm gonna go ahead and go home.
Well, thanks for stopping by, Rob. Unfortunately, we saw you murdered on air.
I thought we were on the same page a few minutes ago when you said 2 people don't fit in this tier, and you were speaking my language when you started with DeAndre Swift, and then when you didn't say Josh Jacobs, you made me very sad. I don't think Josh Jacobs belongs here at all. What he's done on a per game basis is fine. But man, I always want to say Oakland. One day I will remember that they are the Las Vegas Raiders now. But Las Vegas...
Only when they play the San Diego Chargers or the St. Louis Rams.
It seems like every offseason, Las Vegas wants to bring in 7 pass-catching backs, and they refuse to use Josh Jacobs to catch balls, which he's actually good at. It makes absolutely no sense. I don't trust that front office. And then this year they bring in Kenyon Drake. He's certainly going to take more touches away than any other pass-catching back they've had there. I just don't trust him to produce the levels that you would want. I certainly trust Cam Akers more than Josh Jacobs here.
And it's so interesting that they signed Kenyon Drake to catch passes a year after they renewed Jalen Richard to do the exact same thing.
Jalen Richard is a fantastic third down back.
I love Jalen Richard.
And he's still on the roster, which is a crazy thing.
He was hurt last year, wasn't he?
I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't remember hearing his name, so that's probably right. But to the point on Kenyon Drake, I don't think they brought him in just to catch passes. And so that really, really bottoms out Josh Jacobs for me. Again, in this particular tier, I've got 2 guys that don't fit. Josh Jacobs dropping out, and Aaron Jones moving up. I think Aaron Jones belongs in, right behind Derrick Henry in that tier number 3. But yeah, I'm pretty concerned for Josh Jacobs. I unfortunately have quite a few shares of him in Dynasty rosters, and man, I will be looking to unload for the name because I think Kenyon Drake takes a big bite out of his pie.
You know what? You guys are not wrong in any of this. We can't trust Chucky one little bit. The Raiders are going to Raider, and Lord knows what they're planning or what they're going to do. The reason I picked Swift and Akers is because they're basically the same dude in the same situation. But Jacobs definitely is a cut below.
And I also find it interesting that everybody talks so glowingly about Aaron Jones. And again, not to harken back to the age with Zeke. Aaron Jones is older than Zeke. He's 26. Yeah. Like, he's an older back. I'm excited for Aaron Jones this year. But let's not forget that he is getting older as well. Definitely the grandfather of this group. The other older gentleman, the undrafted free agent, as I mentioned, Austin Eckler. I don't find Austin Eckler getting the love that he deserves this year. Is that because Phillip Rivers isn't there to target him and Justin Herbert didn't go to the running back as much? Or should we be concerned over Austin Eckler?
I think we should not be concerned about Austin Eckler. I think he's in my top 10 running backs. I think he certainly belongs in this tier, but he's closer to the Nick Chubb tier for me than he is to the tier below this. And one of the offseason narratives that's absolutely been driving me nuts is that DeAndre Swift is going to take this magical leap forward because he's got a head coach from the New Orleans coaching tree. He's going to be the next Kamara. Well, we've got the same thing in Los Angeles now. We've got a coach from the New Orleans Saints who knows how to use a pass-catching running back. And Justin Herbert certainly targeted Eckler down the stretch last year. I have no concerns about his workload going forward.
I think the big thing on Eckler was we expected with, I'm drawing a blank. Got it with the Broncos.
Melvin Gordon.
With Melvin Gordon going to the Broncos, it would open up some opportunities. And we kind of forgot what Austin Eckler is, and he is a fantastic version of Danny Woodhead. And Danny Woodhead was an extremely productive fantasy running back. Austin Eckler is just a A-plus version of that, and he was never meant to take on exactly what Melvin Gordon left. And they tried it out with Joshua Kelly and Justin Jackson and some of those pieces, and they'll probably go back to the third, fourth, fifth round in the draft this year to continue to do that. But just understand that he is a better version of Danny Woodhead, James White, that type of running back, and that's where he excels, and that's where we want him to be, not an overall 3-down back.
I would love to see the Chargers get like Trey Sermon, or even like poor man's Trey Sermon, like Ramondre Stevenson. Is that his name?
Yeah, and those were two names I was just going to throw at you because they're perfect fits for this.
Yeah, just to be the I mean, I know it's a tired metaphor, but the thunder and lightning in the backfield. But I would love to see somebody to take a little bit of that first down work away from Austin Eckler.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Or
I think
second down work. I don't care whichever down.
I think he's a 3-down back.
I think some of the gap comes from the...
You think he's a 3-down back?
He's 5'8", a little over 200 pounds. He's a little on the shorter side, but 200 pounds is not small by any means for how short he is. I would call him a B+ Alvin Kamara before I call him a better version of Danny Woodhead.
I think some of where Eckler gets downgraded a little bit is he missed some time last year, and that kind of set back his overall numbers and his overall production. And that time coincided with the change between quarterbacks. So that whole shuffle kind of gets lost.
And don't forget,
when
Eckler
he came
and
back,
Woodhead
he was dynamic.
Absolutely. And don't forget, Eckler and Woodhead were both undrafted. So I think that's more... correct me if I'm wrong, Jared. I thought that was more where you were going, like that undrafted receiving back who is actually better in the running game than you expected him to be. but still
Absolutely.
provides that solid receiving floor of a wide receiver just in the backfield.
And bear in
And I
mind,
think-
boys, with Hunter Henry leaving, there's going to be targets available, and those are going to go to that intermediate route runner. If there's any kind of creativity on that offensive play calling staff, it's going to go to Eckler coming out of the backfield or coming out of motion packages into 3 receiver bunches.
And I think Rob's absolutely correct in his assertion that he's closer to Kamara than Woodhead. But again, in that same vein, we don't want to see Kamara get 250 rushing attempts. We just don't want to see it. We want to see him in space and dynamic, scoring and big play opportunities. That's where Austin Eckler needs to be. We don't want him to be a true 3-down, pounding, grinding. Get him the ball in space.
Less space, more efficiency. He needs a lot less touches than someone like a Derrick Henry to put up fantasy points.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not hoping they wear down a defense by the fourth quarter. All right, so to review, so far through our first 3 tiers, we have Christian McCaffrey at 1, followed by Saquon, Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara, and Dalvin Cook. Tier 2 is Zeke, Chubb, and Henry. Tier 3, Aaron Jones, who might be bumped up, DeAndre Swift. 11 is Antonio Gibson, 12 is Cam Akers, 13 is Josh Jacobs, and 14, finishing out our third tier, is Austin Eckler. Now, our next tier has a lot of promise, but they're all missing that little saison, that little something that's going to vault them into the top 12. We have at 15, J.K. Dobbins, 16, CEH, 17, 18, Robinson, 19, David Montgomery, and then 20, number 20, Joe Mixon. Rob, next year when we are doing this podcast, which of these backs will have moved into the top 12?
I could pick out a handful, but if I had to bet money, it would be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I have him.
You do have to bet money.
Let's bet. I'll shake on it right now.
Oh, you have more money than me. That's not fair. Oh.
What Clyde was doing before he went down with injury was he was averaging double-digit fantasy points per game, and he was doing it without touchdowns. He's got a very safe floor, and if that touchdown regression comes in, a positive direction, he easily skyrockets up this board, especially considering he's one of, if not the youngest back in this group.
He is the youngest back in the group. Not by much, but I believe he is having a birthday very shortly. He is still 21 as of today. So, happy soon-to-be birthday, CEH. Don, where are you at on this group? Who is going to end up as an RB1?
I really like the CEH call, and bear in mind that this is a kid who came in that entered a ridiculously complex passing offense without a camp and without a preseason. Given those benefits this year, I think he's really going to move. But to pick a different player, we'll go with Dobbins here because now Ingram is gone. He's going to be the lead dog in that running back tandem with an offense that wants to run the ball. And he's a more dynamic kind of back that's going to be able to be used in more situations. He does catch the ball very well. I realize that with the quarterback they have there, you really can't depend on total dominance from a running back. But he's just so capable of getting the chunk yardage and big plays that I think he's going to really take off. That offensive line was rebuilt and repaired. Getting a dynamic guard like Zeitler in there is phenomenal for them. I think they're in really good shape.
I don't hate that take at all. I think J.K. Dobbins has the riskiest floor of the group and the lowest floor with Lamar's tendency to rush. But J.K. Dobbins is the most talented running back in this group for me in a vacuum.
Jared, where are you at on this group?
I think it's flip a coin between both of those takes. The one thing that I will slightly disagree with is J.K. Dobbins' floor. And again, a lot of that's going to come down to what they actually do with Gus Edwards. But I think at the end of the year, you're probably going to see CEH and J.K. Dobbins have a very similar stat line, very similar fantasy output. CEH is going to be more frustrating week to week just because of the way the Chiefs spread the ball around. We've seen it before with Tyreek Hill, who's one of their top playmakers by far, Travis Kelce's really the only chief skill player that week in, week out, you can count on getting his. And J.K. Dobbins is going to get that 60% rushing rate for the running backs, and extremely run heavy. There's some consistency there. Probably not unlike a guy a couple spots down, David Montgomery, who's going to get 20 carries. It's not always going to be pretty, but there's going to be some consistency. You're going to be pulling your hair out with CH most of the year.
Too late. That was a bald joke. I guess that doesn't come over for the non-video fans. My question is, why are we all looking the guy who already is a top 12 back, James Robinson?
Draft capital. That's it.
That's it? Draft capital? I mean, he finished number 7 in PPR last year.
If he was even a 4th-round pick, he would be in the tier with DeAndre Swift and Aaron Jones all day. It's the Chris Carson effect. He's going to be perpetually undervalued in Dynasty, and I will gladly take advantage of that for the next 2 or 3 years.
It's a good call. I like him a lot. That offense is going to be very interesting. They've got a great sidecar in Carlos Hyde for him. He's going to be in a great position. And Urban Meyer is not shamed at all to run the football. So I think he's going to be very productive and a guy teams are going to want. It's just with so many moving parts in Jacksonville, it's an interesting deal, especially with their offensive line being kind of all over the place.
Yeah, it's funny how normally a good offense will benefit a player. But it seems like James Robinson was better suited for the bad Jags, where he could get the bulk of the carries and perform the bulk of the work. And then these new Jags are coming along, and I think people are a little bit more scared because Lawrence is going to pass the ball. He's going to be able to move it around a lot better than a Jake Luton or a Gardner Minshew could last year.
All I'm hearing is the box is no longer stacked against him, and his yards per touch is going to go up, even if his touches go down.
You are an optimist, and I love you for that. I like that. Less stacked boxes. James Robinson, RB1 next year. All right. Looking at the next tier. It's another weird tier. I feel these are all weird groupings of players. 21, we have Kareem Hunt, followed by Chris Carson, Ronald Jones II, Myles Gaskin, and Devin Singletary. Jared, I don't want to overwhelm you, but in this tier, we also had a 3-way tie for 26th between Raheem Mostert, Damian Harris, and Melvin Gordon III. So, Mostert, Damian Harris, and Melvin Gordon III. Keep trade cut with those 3.
Okay. I'm going to keep Raheem Mostert. You know, they've obviously made a tremendous amount of moves to get the number 3 pick. They've got a vision. Kyle Shanahan has some type of vision post Jimmy G for that offense. And Raheem Mostert is their best back. Now he's 29 years old, or nearly 29 years old. So that kind of flies in the typical face of dynasty selections. But he's so fast. He's so dynamic. I'm going to cut Melvin Gordon, even with Phillip Lindsay off to Houston. They still don't have a quarterback. Now, that may change after the draft, and so too may our rankings. And then I'm going to trade Damian Harris. He's one of those guys that I think has that Alabama name, had enough decent games towards the end of the year where people were overreact on him. You can probably get a bit more than some of these older guys, retreads.
I disagree with you, but I want to hear what somebody else says. Mostert, Harris, or Gordon? Rob, keep trade cut.
I was hoping you would not send this to me, but I'm keeping Melvin Gordon, and I think it's a toss-up between the other two, whether I trade Mostert or cut Harris. I think I would trade Harris just for the name value. I think you'll get a little bit more for him because he's slightly younger. But I think Melvin Gordon's the clear-cut best running back out of this group. and I hope he stays in Denver for a bit longer than the season. He's got the contract uncertainty, and that's the only reason to knock him here at all.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much longer Melgo goes, but I definitely think he has the most secure role, especially with Philip Lindsay leaving the Broncos this year. So I would definitely keep Mostert. I'm definitely keeping Gordon. I'm trading Harris because I think Damian Harris still has a name that people react to. Am I agreeing with you 100%,
yeah, we're
Rob?
seeing this eye to eye.
All right, I have to change my opinion. I'll get back to you on that. All right, so let's just go over these past two tiers. So we had J.K. Dobbins at 15, followed by CEH, Miles Sanders, James Robinson. David Montgomery was at 19. Joe Mixon was at 20. Our next tier, Kareem Hunt at 21. 22 is Chris Carson. 23 is Ronald Jones. 24 is Myles Gaskin. 25 is Devin Singletary. Followed by Melvin Gordon, Damian Harris, and Raheem Mostert. Wow, that's a mouthful. All right, last two tiers. I don't know. I didn't know where to put the line in these. I saw where the line fell based upon our points with our voting. But I want to know where Don is going to put this line. Don, I'm going to read these off. You yell stop like we're in The Price is Right or no, press your luck. No whammies. Zach Moss. So you're gonna yell tier break. Yeah, that's tier break when there's a tier break. Zach Moss, Kenyon Drake, Chase Edmonds.
Tier break.
Above Chase or below Chase?
After Chase. Because our next guy is James Conner and he doesn't have a job.
Yeah, I was wondering how James Conner. All right, we're gonna play tier break with Rob. Rob, I'm at James Conner. Are you yelling tier break too?
I think I draw the line at after Chase Edmonds and before James Conner as well.
All right, you're in the same spot. Jared, are you with them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know why James Conner is so high.
Looking at this list, I would rather have Tony Pollard at least get a handcuff opportunity there over James Conner at this point. But you never know where James Conner could end up a little later in this offseason. They're both risk, even though Pollard has a slightly more secure role at the moment.
So to finish out the tier, after James Conner, we had Philip Lindsay, Tony Pollard, Rob's own Nyheim Hines at 35, followed by number 36, Leonard Fournette. I'm wondering about Tony Pollard. How long does a handcuff remain interesting as they themselves get older? I think somebody like Alexander Madison, who didn't make our list. But how many years can you be that prime backup for a running back?
I think we're going to have to ask Chase Edmonds about that because that's the comp for me. You know, he was the handcuff for David Johnson. Then he became the handcuff for Kenyon Drake after Miami traded him to Arizona. And they've got some similar styles. And I think at some point, Pollard will get a year or two without Zeke in town. But that's who he reminds me of the most. So we've got Edmonds at 31. So there's some traction, even though Chase Edmonds now has the job secured. I kind of think if you hang on to Tony Pollard too long, you end up with a 31 ranked RB at 27, 28 years old.
And that's not a place you want to be. I think that's what you're saying. It's not exactly a place you want to be. Rob, now I'm not sure why you dropped Nyheim Hines so far in your rankings. I know in an earlier version you had him up almost in the top 5. Why are you so down on the number 1 back in Indianapolis?
I am not down on Nyheim Hines at all. I'm looking at the PPR finish right here, and he finished significantly higher than I thought at RB15 on the season last year. I thought he would have been a little further down, maybe high 20s, but he's absolutely an elite third down back, an elite receiving back. It's just he has an absolute monster who is one of the youngest running backs out of anyone we've discussed so far, and Jonathan Taylor in front of him. As Jonathan Taylor grew into the season, I imagine that Nyheim Hines' touches shrunk and shrunk throughout the season, and that would continue into this season. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't really want to touch any running back in this tier unless I have to be honest.
Is there any chance that Philip Lindsay winds up as a top 12 back in Houston?
Top 12?
Top 15? Oh, my word. This is a Herndon take. I should take this all back. I'm going to erase this all from the pod. No, I think top 15, if he's the main back. No, Don, you're saying no.
No, I first of all, I don't trust Houston at all to pick a main back. I have a feeling that backfield is going to be absolutely maddening. Their offensive line is absolute dreck. They've got Laramie Tunsil and stuff. And then, and no quarterback of note, plus one kind of good wide receiver. That's
Don't they
a team
have,
that's going to have a really high pick next year, and that's it.
Isn't Ryan
if they
Finley
still
down
even
there
own
now?
it.
Is it Ryan Finley?
Ooh, goody.
Tyrod Taylor? Taylor?
Actually, I
Tyrod?
think you're right. I think you're right. I think they did get Tyrod Taylor, and that does absolutely nothing for me.
And they traded for Ryan
All
Finley.
right.
Not even a little.
Did you trade for
No,
Ryan
the
Finley?
Texans traded for Ryan Finley, which is the most baffling move they made this offseason.
Well,
Yeah, at least the other things were just
that
money.
would face some definite competition. But okay, guys, best of the rest. Anyone you think that we should move up who we didn't mention? Alexander Madison, AJ. The list goes on and on. Guys who just missed our list. Anybody who you think we should talk about?
I'm going to let one of the others talk about Mike Davis because I know somebody's going to bring him up. So I'll go with A.J. Dillon because the Packers cleared a role for him when they let Williams leave. And I really think that he's got some potential to grow into that exact role that Williams vacated, which was a fantasy relevant running back that's going to get you weeks where he's going to be very useful. He's going to be a flex player that's going to get you touchdowns. He's already started to grow into the short yardage role. And I really like him still, even though last year was kind of a throwaway for him. So I'm going to put Dillon up there.
I like that.
I'm scrolling way down the list here for my guy, and it's Anthony McFarland. Anthony McFarland has ties to Matt Canada, who's the new OC for Maryland. There's not a lot of competition there. We're talking about Benny Snell, and we're talking about Kalen Ballage. I had to Google the Steelers' depth chart while we had this discussion here. I think he is just
It's sad.
as good of a shot to win that role out of anyone in Pittsburgh. He's not the typical Pittsburgh back, which I think is why you've got a little bit of a knock on him. He's a little bit smaller. He's a little bit shiftier and fast than we're used to. But we have a new offensive coordinator here. That might be the direction they're moving in. And I will take the ambiguity and roll the dice at Anthony McFarland ranked 52nd here. You're giving up nothing to get him.
Any love for Tevin Coleman on the Jets? We all thought that would be a good landing spot. He's certainly landed there.
Yeah, but I still like LaMichael Pirine to be.
Do you really like LaMichael Pirine?
To be the guy? And again, the guy in New York is a bit relative, but I like him to be the guy in New York. It wouldn't be a podcast without a Jet shot. JJ, we made it pretty far in. We absolutely did.
We did.
But
we did. And
no,
that
I
was
like
a fair
LaMichael
enough
Pirine.
shot, so I'll take it.
And it didn't come from me this week.
But yeah,
Shocking.
But I like Tevin Coleman there. I think Tevin Coleman has a Carlos Hyde-esque end of his career coming as one of those guys that gets 25-30% of the touches, does well with it. But again, kind of going back to your original question, what you asked, do we have any more love for these guys? It's Tariq Cohen. I think with the rest of these guys here, you're looking at handcuffs, you're looking at guys that are going to be pretty hit or miss. And you've got Andy Dalton, who made the mustache Giovanni Bernard very, very relevant for many, many years. And Tariq Cohen's back, and he's healthy, and he's a guy you can plug in your flex spot at least, and probably see a 10, 12-point floor in most weeks.
Speaking of Gio Bernard and the mustache, where does he go now that he's a free agent? Does he go to Pittsburgh?
I'll take that one since I'm the resident Steelers fan, and I would be very happy to see him there. A qualified, excellent third down back is something that the Steelers offense could definitely use. He's a phenomenal pass blocker, which with at least one new starting tackle could be very beneficial. Catches the ball well, and they're going to bring in a rookie running back to have a real solid veteran there to help with that rookie that comes in is going to be very useful. So I agree with our buddy Santiago, who originally posed that. It's a great call, and it would be a nice fit because it would come on the cheap. He's 8 years in the league, so you're not going to have to pay much more than veteran minimum. It's a good fit.
I would love to see Gio Bernard have one great year.
So with Gio Bernard, it's not going to happen though.
Yeah.
Nice.
With the zingers. I'd sure like to see Gio end up in Jacksonville. And the reason I say that, I think that'd be a perfect spot for him, for Trevor Lawrence to have a check down guy. James Robinson, actually pretty proficient pass catcher, but I think Gio fits really well in again, a James White type role to help Trevor Lawrence along, help Urban Meyer get acclimated to the NFL game. That's where I'd like to see him, and he'd move right up there with Tariq Cohen for me for an every week flex guy.
I can't disagree with you, gentlemen. All right, it's time for tags, where we share our final thoughts and let the riders know where they can find us. Rob.
Putting me on the spot here. Don't have any final thoughts yet, but you can find me on Twitter and on Reddit at the RoDoRob.
Don.
So, folks, we're doing well here with getting vaccines out to everybody, but we're not there yet. Please continue to wear your masks. Look for Mock Draft 3, the trade edition, coming out for me at the end of this week, early next week. We'll see what everybody thinks about the social media Sasquatch's opinions.
Well, hopefully they'll read the whole thing this time.
Well, reading instructions is always key, but as we know, nobody does that.
Nobody reads instructions, hence the all the perishable food in the egg drop contest. Jared Clifton.
Well, it is almost NFL draft time, which means it's almost Dynasty startup time. So we've got a lot of exciting content, a fantastic new layout on the website. So please check us out at riderdynasty.com. And JJ, thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm always so grateful for you to find the time to come on. Rob, thank you so much. Don, as always, thank you. I'm at JJ Wenner on Twitter. I'm also at JJ Wenner on Clubhouse. From all of us to all of you, be safe, be well, and remember, never say anything to make a meeting longer or cut a happy hour short. Boat drinks, my friends. Boat drinks.